And we're gonna,
Okay, I want to
Jim,
carry
we have a
on
quorum
trying
yet?
to get
you got a
this
quorum.
meeting.
Sorry about that.
Hi. Well, maybe it doesn't matter if you're not going to want to make a comment. We don't need your full name.
Oh, well, what happened? Somebody
All
has
right,
a,
it's 7:02 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting to order. The members here this evening are myself, Anna Tennell, Stephen Sicardi, Phil West, Keith Bodwell, James Laporta, and alternate Christine Gray. I'd like everyone to know that the chat feature has been turned off with the exception of notifications to Janelle Mullen with your name if you are at any point interested in making a comment during the public comment portion of the hearing. So send a message to her in chat. If you're on the phone and you are going to want to make a comment, if you know that ahead of time, you might speak now and let us know. Okay, I didn't hear anything back. The other thing is that everyone's going to be muted just so we don't have to hear extraneous noise around your households. I'm going to start the continued public hearing for amendments to the zoning regulations brought forth by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The hearing will come to order. I am Anna Tennell, Chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission and Chairman for the hearing. In compliance with state law, a transcript must be made of everything said at any public hearing of a Planning and Zoning Commission. We're doing this by means of recording both audio and visual on our Zoom meeting platform.
It keeps going out.
For the purpose of the record, let me state that it is now 7:04 p.m. on December 10th. A regular scheduled meeting is posted in Town Hall. The members of the Planning and Zoning Commission who are present tonight and seated for the hearing are Anna Tennell, Stephen Sicardi, Phil West, James Laporta, and Keith Bodwell. I'm going to turn it over now to Karen, who has some information.
Okay, thank you, Anna. This is a continued public hearing. It was properly continued from the November 10th regular meeting to tonight. A legal notice regarding the continuation is not required, and all legal notices anyways are up on the town website as opposed to on the newspaper. Since the continuation of the public hearing in November, the following information was made part of the record, forwarded to all commission members, and where noted, posted on the town website prior to tonight's meeting. On December 3rd, November 19th, correspondence from David Colbert. December 2nd, correspondence from Hector Prudhomme. December 3rd, correspondence from Audrey and Ed Furman. On the 6th, I posted December 5th, correspondence from Jane Harold and her husband, Robert Zima. And correspondence received yesterday and today and not posted was email correspondence from Roxanna Robinson and email correspondence for the letter attachment from Debbie Bennett. Those were not put up on the website, and those are being made part of the record tonight. They will be put up on the website later this week, probably on Thursday. And that's all I have to make as part of the record. And then I'm turning it back over to Anna Tennell.
Those of you who might have looked at our minutes from our November 24th workshop meeting, we stated the following. There was general discussion regarding the status of both the attainable housing cut and home business amendments. And there was agreement that the business amendments would be withdrawn at the continued public hearing on December 8th regular meeting. I would note that earlier this evening I said it was December 10th. That was an error. It's December 8th. It was apparent that changes to be made would be substantial. So we have made all of the correspondence received part of the record, and all of it will be useful as we continue our discussion about how to reframe this new set of regulations. We hope we're going to be able to bring it forward in 2021. And based on the fact that the draft regulations as brought forward are no longer under consideration for change, it is the intent of the Commission to withdraw the regulations from consideration at this point. We will continue to discuss the modifications at workshop meetings, which are open to the public, but which do not admit any public comment or discussion. However, the public is free to observe us at our work. I want to thank everybody who participated. This is clearly a subject that has generated a lot of interest in town and some controversy. We're very grateful for the feedback, and I can assure you that we're all listening. So hopefully we'll see you again at the next public hearing on this matter in the new year. Next, we're going to turn to another pending application, home businesses, which is to replace section 8.16 through 0.21, which is to be removed from special permit requirements. Wait a minute. I'm reading a script, folks. I would like to have a motion from someone on the commission that we will remove home businesses. The action by the commission is to withdraw that amendment. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, James.
Second.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Steve Lascardi.
Wait, who was the first?
James.
James and then Steve.
And all commissioners who are in favor, please raise their hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So that motion passes. Now we're going to discuss the attainable housing cut. And there were revisions that had been made prior to our last public hearing and which have since been posted on the website. I'm going to ask our land use consultant, Janelle Mullen, to share the screen with us now and to go over the modifications to the original amendment that you saw at the last public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just pulling it up. One quick second. Perfect. So this was posted on the website. Is that legible for everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. I will try to scroll so that the whole thing is in the screen. So this was posted on the website. There have been small housekeeping changes as a result of the public hearing, the first session. Just for everyone's awareness, these are the changes that the commission agreed upon at the last workshop meeting.
Do you want to go through them and how the ones that were in response to some of the concerns that were expressed at the public hearing?
Sure. Some of the changes were just merely housekeeping, some word choices that were made a little bit better and improved upon. This is the first section that I'm looking at. Those were truly word choices. And one of them was just to truly clarify how many attaining housing cuts you could create as a result of this regulation amendment, and really thinking of putting a very clear indication of the fact that it would be limited to one or two. So that clarification was made, and then using the plurality of lots versus lots was made, And so that's what's seen basically at point 3, that a property owner can create no more than 2. That was a point of clarity that was made. And then an additional one is just that the original lot needs to remain conforming. And also there's a star here that if a property owner did wish to come in and make more than 2 attainable housing cuts, there's another mechanism to go about it, and that would be through the special permit process. So those were the small changes. And I believe that part E is just a clarification of what one must do as far as getting a zoning permit. So that's a clerical thing where the procedure was made clear, because this is an insertion into the existing regulations. We didn't want any of the process to be lost.
Thank you for that, Janelle.
You're welcome.
So maybe, can you shove that over to the side?
I can stop the share completely if that makes
Well,
it.
I think you should leave it there in case the members of the public, but you know, you can use the window left button. Never mind, you don't have to.
Yeah, because of, I pulled it up as the file, so it won't work that way.
Okay. Well, let's ask if there are any, is this the appropriate time, Karen, to ask for questions?
And Madam Chairman, we have a fair amount of people that I don't think were here for the public hearing before, so you might want to just have them or note how these amendment changes were brought forth and how they relate, or the fact that they were initiated in response to the 2020 Plan of Conservation Development. Just for anybody that is new to this.
Well, some of you who were at the first public hearing may recall that I spoke at some length about how these amendments came into being. In the first place, there was a presentation of data that had been part of the background information gathering for the creation of our Plan of Conservation and Development. I don't have those numbers in front of me now, but they pertain to housing costs in Cornwall compared to other places. And we also brought up the goals and strategies that had been noted in the Plan of Conservation and Development pertaining to housing. So you can refer back to the original minutes of the public hearing, which contain all the data for both of these amendments. There were quite a few zoning regulation changes that were suggested in the Plan of Conservation Development. We selected these 2 because they appeared to be important to Cornwall, more pressing than some others, and we thought we could get the work done in a timely fashion. So hopefully that satisfies what you were intention, Karen.
The only other thing, if you want to actually refer to the housing goal as it appears in the Plan of Conservation Development and the action task.
Well, I think if you wait for the ultimate motion, you'll hear all of that.
Okay, all right, I will. So the audience can wait to hear that later. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you, Anna.
I think it's time for questions, if there are any from commission members at this point. Any questions? Okay.
Janelle, can you share the that document again so we can look at the, is that possible to see?
I'd be happy to, James, absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah. How's that for you?
Great.
Great.
I had a question about the buildable lot paragraph, third one down on the left.
Mm-hmm.
Are we saying, it said it's free of deeds and other land restrictions such as wetlands, watercourses, and flood hazards. So are we saying if there does happen to be wetlands on the parcel, even if it's outside of the required buildable area, then it would go through the special permit process?
That it qualifies as a buildable lot. So no, it doesn't designate that it would be going through a special permit process. It just designates that the parcel that's created does indeed need to be a buildable lot. Typically that's verified by your A2 survey and then also your local health district that does the test pits.
I'm just concerned because the wording sounds like if there's any wetlands on the resulting parcel, then it can't move forward. In other words, a legally created parcel that contains the required land area to satisfy them. So it's the land area, the buildable land area can't have wetlands, but the parcel could.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, typical of any building lot in
Yeah.
like any building lot.
I'm familiar with it. I just want to make sure that we're not, that's understood from a question of wording.
Why don't we
Does that
change
make
it?
sense?
Yeah, it does. Could we state instead a legally created parcel that contains a buildable lot satisfying blah, 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 blah?
Well,
If
Yeah.
we already have a buildable lot defined, don't we? Do we
Feel
not
like-
have buildable lot defined already?
Well,
Let me.
I can see James's point. I think it's better to err on the side of being overly clear rather than less clear.
Well, I think the catch is you say a legally created parcel.
Parcel.
And when you say parcel, that makes it sound like it's not just the buildable lot, that's the resulting total acreage. And if that resulting total acreage happens to have wetlands, watercourses, flood hazards, then it could be read that then you could not proceed with this document.
What you could just do is put in parentheses
Illegally
after the
created.
required land area. In the second sentence, Janelle,
Mhm.
put in parentheses, AKA buildable lot. Because you are referring to a buildable lot when you say the required land area.
So I'm right here, Anna, just to be
Yeah.
clear. Yeah.
In other words, there's no point in donating a parcel that does not contain any buildable lots.
Does that make it clear for you, James?
Yeah, it was just that I wanted to make sure we're talking about the buildable lot. It's obviously, what has to not have some of these other restrictions, not the parcel as a whole.
Mhm.
Thank you for that, James.
Yeah,
That
no,
does add clarity.
it's very helpful.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay, are there any public comments? Have you notified Janelle that you wish to make a comment? If not, you could do so now through the chat function.
Madam Chair, at this point in time, I do have Joanne, and I apologize for the pronunciation of this last name. Joanne W.
Vodashek.
Joanne W. Will you say it?
Vodashek.
Vodashek. Wonderful. Joanne Vodashek.
Go ahead, Joanne. Is she unmuted?
Yes, she should be able to manually unmute. I'll try to alert her to do that.
So I can unmute? Okay,
Yeah.
There you go.
Good.
thank you. I've been called a lot worse. That was pretty good pronunciation.
I apologize.
I had a couple questions. I'm concerned about the lack of movement in the town of Cornwall on the affordable housing. We seem to do something every 10 years and nothing in between. There are 2 lots that I can virtually see from my house that have been available to the housing group for 10 years and have not been used. That's a concern to me, and I think should be to all of us who want to see this move ahead. So I have a suggestion that I would ask the board to consider, and that's maybe put an expiration date on this special offering that you're offering to people. In other words, they can take the cuts, but if action isn't taken within, say, a reasonable time period of 2 or 3 years, then that cut expires. I think it would create some outside pressure and would be good to move the process along. And I don't see that it has any downside really, and only an upside. The other thing is that I would hope that the zoning commission is also looking, it's one of the things that the housing people constantly say is it's not just having land available, that you need other things like financing. And there is something else in the POCOD that was assigned to the Board of Selectmen that called for supporting programs that educated people about improving their credit and other alternate financing vehicles. So I hope that the zoning board will pressure the Board of Selectmen to act that way so that there'll be more meaningful follow-up to this suggested change to the zoning regulations. Those are my issues for right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne. Any other comments?
Janet Carlson?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So the EDC, I'm Janet Carlson, chair of the EDC. So one of our priorities was to work with planning and zoning and the other commissions for attainable housing, but also if we want to have economic development in Cornwall, really the only way that you're going to be able to do that is if people can afford to live here. So this seems like a wonderful way to allow people to give to the town and allow people to buy lots in the town and build on them. I don't know, I won't speak to the 2 or 3 year limit. I'm not sure, I hear what's being said about that. I think there's just more of a availability and an ability to build on these lots with things you can kind of put on the property that have come more recently that have come down in price. So that may be a reason why it's taken a while, because there wasn't anything really affordable to do. But I would certainly encourage this commission to look at this, to be able to allow people to charitably give something back to the town and be able to bring people who might not be able to purchase a house, but would be able to do it with this program. So I would strongly encourage you to do that if you want to see economic development. And I'd love to see Janelle move here, and that's one way she could perhaps do it. That's my comment.
Thanks, Janet. Janelle does live here, but I think you would like her to be a homeowner. Is that correct?
Yes, I sure would. That makes a big difference.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Other comments?
It appears that Bruce Bennett would care to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'd like clarification on the potential for a third cut. So what we're saying, if I can give an example, is somebody might have a 20-acre lot. They can cut off 2 one-acre lots and still maintain a lot that is conforming to zoning regulations. Now you're saying that what they can also do is cut off a third lot into this scenario, so that we may end up with 3 one-acre lots in a 5-acre zone, that if the property, if the property is large enough to be able to do that and still conform.
Janelle, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, so just your inquiry is if let's just say hypothetically you wanted to perform an attainable housing cut in the 5-acre zone, so an R5.
Yes.
And presumably that would mean that you would have to have a 7-acre lot if you wanted to create 2 additional attainable housing lots.
Correct.
So then sorry to use the term you, but so then for lack of a better term, the original lot would remain conforming with the 5 acres, and there would be 2 additional attainable housing lots in that 1 acre size.
No, what I'm interested in is so here's my concern. My concern is that if someone has a large piece of land and they cut off the first two, which is what we're agreeing to in this proposal, because they have a large acre of land, they could actually create 3. So now what's happening?
Per this regulation, what's intended is that if that were to be a proposition, they would go through the subdivision route.
But that it would be allowed to occur, correct?
It would need to go through a different process, so it would have to be vetted by the subdivision regulations.
Bruce, we have a subdivision regulation, and we also have a special permit process that addresses your question. So yes, it might be permissible, but they would have to meet all the requirements in our current regulations.
You know, I think my concern is that what would be potentially allowed is to start to create a whole nother zone in a 5 or even a 3 acre zoning scenario if somebody can put in 3 1-acre lots into those areas.
I don't see how anyone could put in 3 1-acre lots. This amendment only allows 2.
But you can then subdivide the remaining of the property and add another one.
You can do that currently.
Yeah, you can do that now.
Through subdivision.
You can create a 1-acre lot in a 5-acre zone?
No.
If it's for attainable housing, it's 8.26 special permit process.
I think I'm not being clear, huh?
No, you're being clear.
Yeah, if I may, for clarification, currently in our regulations, we have a provision that is under the special permit process. So there is community involvement and hearing at that point for attainable housing cuts. And what this regulation that we're proposing tonight is doing is saying if you want to do 1 or 2 parcels, then you could bypass that special permit process and it would be allowed without going through the special permit process. But if you wanted to do more than 2 parcels, then our current regulation would come into play and you'd have to go through the special permit process for that.
Oh, not just the subdivision process.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
I want to quickly point out that the subdivision that you heard last month, the Ginny Potter subdivision, was a subdivision with special permit. So what you saw last month is exactly what's being talked about. And that was the 2 side lots. Ginny's house was the 3rd lot, and then there was also open space, but it went through the subdivision process with the special permit for the 2 lots. And that is what caused the public participation, noticing, et cetera, et cetera.
Got it. Thank you all.
Okay,
Madam Chair, Gordon Ridgway.
thanks. Go ahead, Gordon.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. And I'd like to speak in support of this proposed change. The town has allowed obtainable cuts for quite a while. There are several subdivisions that have happened in town. 1, 2, 5 lot subdivisions lower than the existing zones. There are approximately 18 houses, I believe, that are part of the parcel program owned, or the land underneath them is owned by the Cornwall Housing Corporation. And this has been going on successfully for a long time in town. And this proposed change would increase the amount of lots available to that type of program. Currently, because we know of the program in Cornwall, there are gardeners, there are firefighters, there are artists, there are retired school workers, school bus drivers, farmers, and other people who have worked in town and are essential to the town's functioning that otherwise would be unable to live in town if there hadn't been this type of program. And again, I think this program would encourage that. It shows the wisdom of the current 2020 town plan where this was listed as something that should be done because it encourages good behavior. It encourages things like what Ginny Potter did out of great generosity. She's a former planning and zoning commissioner, chairman, was involved with planning and zoning, knows all the pressures and things facing the town. And again, this would make home ownership possible for people that are important to have in town. And I would, again, encourage the commission to keep on its work. I'm glad that they've made some revisions. And this obviously makes sense because now Cornwall, if anything, the last 6 months has become a hot real estate market and is more out of reach. And without this type of thing will be out of reach for many people the town relies on. It's fine to have goals in town, but I think it's also important to acknowledge the necessity of the people who work to make those goals happen. So anyway, thanks for your work and your time and your efforts and your revisions and the process.
Thanks, Gordon. I would like to just add that Cornwall Housing Corporation actually owns 15 lots, 13 have houses on them, 2 do not, as Joanne has pointed out. The attainable lots that we are being created have to meet the average family income for Litchfield County for a family of 4. That's the definition of attainable. So they have to meet 100% of the average Litchfield County income for a family of 4, which happens to be $102,000 and $600. So I think that information needs to be available. People need to understand it. We are not really giving Cornwall away when we're doing this. I'm going to ask again, are there any more comments?
Madam Chair, it looks like Christine Gray does have a question.
Hi, Christine Gray here. It just occurred to me, this regulation applies to a property owner and not a property. So if, say, you've got 20 acres in an R5 zone, an owner follows this process, splits off 2 lots, sells the property, can the following owner, can the next owner do the same thing? And if not, or how do we control that, I guess? You know, is there a density requirement, you know, space, or because it is no longer applicable, because it doesn't follow subdivision regulations, it's not considered a re-subdivision or a 4th cut. That's it.
So Christine, if I'm understanding your question, and just to answer it as far as safeguards, one of the provisions, and I might be missing your question altogether, so I apologize, but one of the provisions is that in the land record on that map, the lot that's intended for attainable housing is designated. So there will certainly be that title paper trail of what's going on. So given that if there was an attainable housing cut, if the property owner were to change and there were to be excess property and they would want to divide any land, it sounds as though that would be triggering subdivision.
Yes.
The creation of an additional lot would trigger the subdivision regulations.
No, okay, sorry, let me run through that scenario again. I have 20 acres in an R5 zone. I go through this process. I split off an 18-acre lot, conforms, and 2 1-acre lots. I sell my 18-acre lot to my brother. He now has 18 acres in an R5 zone. He goes through this process, splits off 2 1-acre lots, and is left with a conforming lot, 16 acres in an R5 zone. Now, because we don't have to go through the subdivision process, we are allowed a free second cut. Is that correct?
Well, zoning runs with the land, so it would run with the land and not so much the property owner. So because it had already occurred on that land,
Okay.
it wouldn't become up for grabs because of a new property owner.
But that, I believe, and I could be wrong, but isn't that, that is part of the, is that part of the zoning regulations, or is that part of the subdivision regulations?
That's
State regulation.
zoning.
It's a zoning.
So
Okay.
that's, yeah.
Because yeah, as long as it doesn't follow the property owner, but follows the property. So this would only be allowed,
No.
this would only be allowed once on a parcel.
Correct. Okay. And yeah, just to clarify, so the framework for zoning, not just in Cornwall, not uniquely in Cornwall, but to speak for Connecticut, is that it runs with the land rather than with the person.
Right.
So it's tied to what's occurring on that parcel, on that property.
Right. I just didn't know if with this amendment, because we specify property owner as opposed to property, if we were trying to get around that. That's all that's just what I was wondering.
Yeah, no, I do understand your question.
Okay.
I have a feeling that might be related to what Bruce Bennett was trying to get across to us too.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
right. That's right, Anna.
Yeah. Okay. We're having good discussions, good questions. Anybody else have one?
I think, and Toby might have a question. Toby, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, I do have a question. And this may have been discussed or maybe part of another effort, but I was just wondering, you mentioned the income requirement for an attainable cut as $100,000, $102,000. And I'm just wondering what the average cost of construction is for a single family home on a 1-acre lot in Cornwall currently. And if that cost is all borne by the potential new owner of the house, and whether or not any of the planning and zoning rewrites or overhauls or some portion of the attainable regulation content is at all looking at any form of multifamily construction or any form of accessory dwelling unit as part of an existing structure as other ways to facilitate more affordable housing in Cornwall.
I'm going to answer your question, Toby, by suggesting you look at the Plan of Conservation and Development under the housing section, because the items you just asked about are there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Comments? Any comments?
Just to add, Chairman, to what you had said to Toby too, is a part of the effort of the zoning regulation rewrite overall is adding alternative ways to potentially introduce diverse housing options in the town of Cornwall. This being the very first priority regulation, given that it was explicitly in the Plan of Conservation and Development, if that helps. So this is a...
How is this regulation different from what was in the regulations currently?
This was not an option.
Mm-hmm. So what is the attainable lot option that Gordon was referring to earlier?
The Cornwall Housing Corporation buys the lot and helps a new homeowner build a new home. They provide them with information about low-cost mortgages. The Cornwall Housing Corporation owns the lot. Now, I have to say that we're not here for the purpose of this kind of questioning. So I don't want any more questions that don't pertain directly to our amendment. I'd welcome any comments or suggestions, but only questions pertaining to the amendment, please.
Madam
I'm sorry,
Chair.
and I just feel like maybe just one more clarification on that. Previously, the similar type of regulation was allowed. It just had to go through a special permit process. And what we're doing here is saying, if you're you're going to do 1 or 2 lots, you don't have to go through the special permit process, but in essence, it's the same general regulation. So it's just making it easier for somebody to do 1 or 2 lots of attainable housing. Whereas previously, if you wanted to do any number of lots for attainable housing, you had to go through a special permit process. Does that help? Sorry about that, Anna.
No, that's fine. More clarity, better.
Could I speak to this?
Go ahead.
Okay. For the record, I'm Karen Nelson. I'm the land use administrator, and I worked with the housing subcommittee for the Plan of Conservation Development, and it came to my attention that there are property owners in the town of Cornwall who have large acreage property and wanted to deed off a parcel lot, and they had already had their land subdivided. This is an option. First cuts, lot line adjustments, and things like that are allowed by statute. A second cut normally isn't. And this amendment, and I'm going to read it right from the town plan, adopt a town ordinance or zoning regulation change that allows a free second cut for property owners who wish to donate a lot for affordable housing to a local housing nonprofit like the Cornwall Housing Corporation. This would exempt the property owner from the subdivision regulations for this purpose. Example, Salisbury, Connecticut. So this is a new way where other people would have had to go through subdivision. This takes the burden of subdivision process for a second free cut. And this was brought to housing subcommittee as one of the probably quickest ways. We are going to get some, and it was brought from my office and with a lot of cooperation from the Housing Corporation, because we know that this can promote and increase the number of affordable housing very quickly and help it meet the housing goal, which is to increase the number of affordable housing units by at least 25 over the next 10 years. And that is in the town plan, along with the other parts, which Janelle discussed, which is other options for mixed affordable housing and things like that. But it is, I think it's on like page 7 of the town plan.
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Yes, Madam Chair, I believe Caroline Astro.
Okay, Caroline.
Hi, thank you for the work that you're doing and for considering the public in your meetings. I have a question about, there are 2 questions. One is that in one of the last meetings, I believe.
No, Caroline, I've asked everyone to keep their questions pertinent to this amendment.
Okay, so I won't make it a question then. So in one of the last meetings, I believe it was I think Janelle mentioned that we should consider these regulations in relation to other regulations that will be changed in the P&Z that you're working on, meaning that the language doesn't have to be, well, anyway, meaning that the specifics in one section, that there will be other sections that will apply to that one section as well. And so that they should be considered together. And so if you are moving forward to change other housing regulations or regulations in the P&Z that will in fact apply to this section, I would request that you provide those changes as well, since they will be working in tandem, meaning that if several sections are going to change that relate to each other, it's hard to approve one without seeing how the others relate to it. That information may not be accurate, but that was the first question, the first statement. The second one is that in 514 in the new recommendations, it says the subdivision regulations will not be applied to this division of land. And my question is, so when you talk about a division, is that to the 2 lots that will be created, or that the subdivision regulations will no longer also apply to the original lot? For example, if it's a 30, like people were saying, if it's a 30-acre lot and you create 2, then it's a bit unclear, it seems to me, whether that 30-acre lot will be no longer subject to some subdivision regulations. I think there's a reference that sort of addresses this later on, but it's,
Caroline, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we just finished having a discussion about this topic. Christine asked the same question and so did Bruce. I thought we had
I'm talking
answered.
about very specifically about 5.14, that language right there where it says the subdivision shall not be applied to this, the subdivision regulations shall not be applied to this division of land. So I think the intention there is it's not to apply to the 2 additional lots. Is that correct? But Janelle, but I think the way the language is constructed, it also appears that it will not apply to the original 38, the larger piece of land as well, and that you could then, it's a different way of getting at what Christine Gray was mentioning. And just basically, it seems to me there's a lot of stuff in this. There's a lot of stuff in here that it's a bit vague. A lot of this some of this language, and the special permit process seems to allow for errors much better than that there has to be a lot of precision in this language when it's not going through special permit. And so, are there attorneys involved looking at this and making sure that we're really doing this in a very careful way? Because I'm already seeing some, and I think others are mentioning it too, Bruce and Christine and others are mentioning a little bit of vagueness in this language. That's all I'm asking, is that we be as particular and specific as possible. And I know you've been working hard in that, and would especially if we're going to be moving out of the special permit process, which would allow for that, which would allow some wiggle room there to be able to address those issues later on.
Thank you for your comments, Caroline. Are there any others?
It does appear that David Colbert would care to speak.
Okay, I just want to simply applaud the commission for its efforts in bringing this to this point relatively speedily, and I applaud it. I hope you vote it into force. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.
And Madam Chair, it does look as though Joanne would like to speak again.
Well, we allow a second comment if everyone has had a chance to make a first comment. So this is going to be a last call for first comments. And if there aren't any, Joanne is welcome to make a second one.
I'm just scanning for everyone. I believe that everyone that cares to speak has spoken. If you're on a phone, you can unmute with *6.
Thank you.
Okay, Joanne, carry on.
Is there a possibility, Anna, since you had described what the income limits were, I wondered if you felt it was absolutely necessary to make the cuts turned over to a nonprofit or the town. Could you write it so that it could be purchased by someone who simply submitted sufficient data to show their financial status, so that people could actually go straight to building and buying and could actually own the land under their property, which I think some people would find more desirable? So I would ask the committee to consider whether it would be possible to offer that option. Because one of the things that happens with the parcel program, it's a wonderful program, but hopefully you bring people to town and they make more money over a period of time. They're never re-examined. So you could be making $300,000 and still be living in a parcel house because there's no reevaluation. So I think there are some people who would like to own the land. And I wonder if you couldn't write this regulation to make that possible for people. Thank you.
Thanks for the comment.
Madam Chair, it looks as though I might have, and I could be mistaken, missed Paul Gottsagen.
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry to miss you.
No, thank you very much. I was just curious if indeed the draft of this language was indeed reviewed by corporation counsel or an attorney in planning. Janelle, I guess.
So you were cutting out just a little. You were asking about an attorney's review?
Yes, I was just curious if this was reviewed by Corporation Counsel or, a planning and zoning.
Sorry.
Of course. So I would always defer to the town of Cornwall to direct me in that, being that I'm their consultant. I have, just out of curiosity, spoken with a contact of mine just to clarify, and I have seen other examples of it. So Salisbury is a good example of this attainable housing cut.
Right, but this particular language was not, I'm just curious if it was reviewed by an attorney.
Again, I would always defer to the town, given that I am consulting for them. So.
Okay.
God say again, we have used attorneys in the past when we feel they're necessary. We have great confidence in the background and expertise and experience of our land use consultant. So in this one case, we didn't think it was required or necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Last chance. Okay, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed at 7:52 p.m.
You need a motion.
Karen?
Have your commission make the motion under pending application
Okay.
to continue.
All right,
Close.
that's fine. Sorry. So the public hearing isn't actually closed. I would like to ask commission members if they would consider a motion to accept this amendment as it was modified.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Oh, is that what it is? All right. I'm new to this. A second, please.
I second.
Thank you, Keith. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, public hearing is closed. We're going to proceed with our regularly scheduled zoning meeting. The first item on our agenda.
Wait. Anna, I'm going to back you up for just a moment. We closed the hearing and now moving on to pending application. Are we going to act on this application now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right.
We have to act on both, don't we?
No,
The
we
other one we
closed-
withdrew.
We
Yeah,
withdrew the
never
first
mind.
one.
All right.
So we have a pending application. It's the attainable housing cut, a new section, Article 5, Section 14. I would like a motion that reads as follows, that we accept the amendment as modified, including the modification made at tonight's hearing, based on the fact that it satisfies 2 of the 6 housing goals of the 2020 Plan of Conservation and Development. That is, support the efforts of the Cornwall Housing Corporation and consider zoning and permitting changes that would make building homes more affordable. Could I have a motion?
I move that we accept it.
Thank you, Phil. Steve, is that a second?
Oh, yeah, I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
I'm
Raise your hands, please, so I can see them. Keith, are you raising your hand? Is Keith abstaining? We lost him.
Well,
Did we lose
I,
Keith?
nope, I'm here, I'm sorry. Mute didn't come off.
Are you raising your hand, Keith?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, yes, I am.
All right, the motion carries.
For clarification, Madam Chair, we are approving this amendment as the amended copy that was reviewed and up on the screen.
Correct?
Am I correct? That we did not make any additional changes with a minor tweak, Janelle? Is there anything at all? Any language changed at all from the copy that was put up on?
There is a set of parentheses that says AKA buildable lot.
Okay.
That's all. That's the only change from And the motion that I read included that change.
Okay. And the commission has found that it is not inconsistent with the town plan of conservation development.
Correct.
Yes. And I'm going to suggest an effective date of January 1st, 2021,
That
because
sounds appropriate. Thank you. All right, moving on to the regular meeting. We need to approve minutes from November 10th, our regular meeting, and November 24th, our special meeting. The minutes were quite lengthy. I read them and edited them with Karen. I'm hoping that you've all read them and that we can rapidly approve them. Is there a motion to approve those two sets of minutes?
I move to approve the minutes as distributed.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion or commentary? Corrections? All in favor, raise your hands.
Aye.
Keep your hands up. Okay, then we have, next section is new applications. There are none. I'm going to turn over the next sections, correspondence and communications, followed by the zoning officer's report to Karen.
okay, I'm going to quickly refer to Janelle for the zoning regulation amendment memorandum by Janelle. Was correspondence that was requested at the last meeting. Janelle forwarded it to me. It has been up on the website. I think it answers in some fashion some of the concerns brought up by Caroline Nastro, but that zoning regulation amendment memorandum speaks to the work of the commission to look at the rest of the regulations, and it will remain up on the website under the correspondence for this meeting. So I just wanted to make that clear. So in case anybody is looking for that, it is up on the website. Okay, and
great.
Anybody have any questions on that? You all had, the commission members all have it, I believe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. My zoning officer report is just the three zoning permits. So one piece I wanted to point out, revisiting the Patricia Bramley permit. The Bramleys have had an accessory cabin on the property, which was really made part of an accessory apartment before there was any real way of flagging it on the land record. So as part of this permit, we are going to make sure that this is counted in your detached accessory apartments in the count in the town of Cornwall, which is spoken to in the town plan of conservation development. So we're trying to validate and count all of these pieces that are out in the landscape that we might not know about. I also quickly want to speak to the third zoning permit, generators and propane tanks, and just remind people that the land use office and the building inspector that we are trying to make sure that generators and propane tanks comply with, in some fashion, some sort of setbacks that are appropriate for the health, safety, welfare, and peaceful nature of the Cornwall community, so that they are not put on property lines in places where they become more of a nuisance to the neighbor than they are appropriate than for the use of the single person that's putting them in. So I just wanted to point that out. There have been some questions raised about it. So, and would you like me to continue on to the annual planning meeting piece, Anna?
Certainly.
Okay. This was brought up at our workshop meeting, and we were talking about setting a date and process for this. If I would like to talk to the commission, some suggestions for you. So I'm going to basically outline the fact that we have always had this planning meeting since 2013. It was brought up in the 2010 plan, and it has turned into a much bigger meeting than was originally intended. It will be now 2 years. We did not have one this year, so this would be sometime in January. It obviously would have to be by Zoom. Oh, boy, I'm glad I'm getting trumpet accolades. Since we adopted the town plan of conservation development close to a year ago, there has certainly been big changes based on the pandemic. That's why everything would have to be a Zoom meeting, that there would be no way to hold this meeting in town hall or the school or in any other forum until there is changes, vaccinations or whatever. But I think it's a really good opportunity. The landscape has also changed in that many of our partners that are helping with the town plan for health, safety, and welfare of the community and that are not necessarily part of our planning meeting in being named partners, but many of subcommittees and other entities that have been formed since the plan of conservation and development to open this meeting up to having a broad spectrum of people, our churches again, or your churches, I should say, I don't live here, a lot of the people who have stepped up to the plate for food safety for citizens that are struggling during this pandemic. And other formations. There's a subcommittee that is being formed to address housing that is going to address social justice. The town plan of conservation development that we adopted in January of this year did not address social justice, which is very different than the landscape that we're seeing now. And I think it would be a good way to have a planning meeting in which some of the changes and some of the people who are working very hard to make Cornwall a better place be given the forum to be able to talk, even if they're not necessarily named as a partner in the plan of conservation development. So I'm asking.
Okay, can I ask you a question then, Karen? Are you suggesting that the focus of this meeting not be the plan of conservation and development, but basically be a review of what various groups and volunteers in town have been doing over the past year to be of assistance to the town of Cornwall?
Yes.
Is that what you're suggesting?
And I certainly would wish that they would find, I hope that there is some correlation in the plan of conservation development, but nobody has to search it and have to, say that, yeah. No, I'm sorry for being long-winded.
Well, that's okay. I welcome any comments from commission members, how they view that change and what the function of the annual meeting is.
So it seems like we started that process after the 2010 town plan as a way to just touch base with how our action item list was proceeding. And then,
yeah,
actually, in the 2010 plan of conservation development, the meeting was mentioned only in the housing section, and it was only to address the changes to be made in the housing section, including TDRs, which were not.
It came out of the 2010 town plan, and then I think in 2013, you're saying is when we expanded it to say, okay, we've got this whole action item chart. Let's invite all the commission groups that had an action item, and let's see how we're progressing with the town plan. I mean, I like your idea, but I also want to stay focused with what our goals are as a P&Z commission and say, do we need a separate meeting for the town? I'm kind of curious what Gordon would think, because obviously our original meeting that we've been having has been pretty lengthy already. I'm not sure if we want to, how broad we want to make it.
I agree with you, James. I will let Gordon have a word, but that kind of meeting that Karen is describing is something that it seems to me the town should sponsor, not the Planning and Zoning Commission. So that's my take on it. Anybody else?
No, I agree.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think it is important too. I mean, and I can summarize all the living through 2020 and all the challenges we have fairly quickly as part of what we're doing for the Board of Selectmen. But I think it's really important to use this opportunity that we've been doing every year, especially for new residents in town, of which there are many, and I think that's a really good thing, to sort of clue in, have a discussion as far as our town plan. What are some of the goals of it? What are we trying to accomplish? And what are all those pieces? And again, we can touch on some of the current things that we couldn't have thought of 2 years ago. But again, what are we talking about as far as this housing, jobs, the environment, all those things that are important to people? And I think, again, by taking our standard plan, even though it does take a good part of the morning, and running through some of the efforts of these different boards and commissions, I think it's a really good opportunity to engage with people about what we're trying to accomplish. And again, step back a little bit, because it's often easy to get ahead of everybody because we spend a lot of time in meetings and working on drafts and things. So I think if we can figure out a way to focus the meeting on the town plan and where we're trying to go, and again, focus on the new world we're living in, and that could even 2021 could be totally different than 2022. I mean, in some ways, it's a difficult year to plan in, but a lot of the issues as far as, environmental quality, housing, jobs, social justice, equity, things, those aren't going away, no matter how successful the vaccine is. So I think we can work something out that would be beneficial to everybody.
I don't know how many of you guys saw the little production for the day after Thanksgiving, but maybe there's a way to do some sort of a production like that for the different groups to speak to some of the parts of the efforts that they're doing, so we don't necessarily have to sit in a Zoom meeting and try and coordinate everybody at the same time, but there can be a presentation, and then maybe we have an open comment part afterwards. Watch this first and then come watch the have comments, and maybe there's breakout rooms or something for the different chunks or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's worth considering, Phil. I think.
And maybe we don't do it all at once. Maybe we have, shorter meetings that focus on one portion of the PCOD, the document. Break it into a series of smaller chunks that we can address that one section, this evening, and then another section, do sort of a running series or something.
Worth considering. Steve, did you have something to say?
No, I like Phil's idea. It would be, it might just be a little bit more organized, and we could get a lot of communication across.
There are some issues with that. We need a film maker and a video editor.
Yeah, I think Fred would be excited to do it.
The talent show has
figure it out.
Okay. Well, Karen, did you want to set a date this evening?
Yeah.
I think you better think about a date towards the end of January, so we have time to sort these things out.
Or even the beginning of February, yeah.
Yeah, February.
February.
Okay. I suggest that we take these suggestions and comments home with us and bring them up again at our December 29th planning meeting.
Okay.
And I'm hereby formally reminding you that we have a planning meeting on December 29th to discuss the home business regulation.
Okay.
Having said all that, we've had a 1 hour, 10-minute meeting. I think that's plenty. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Steve.
I'll second.
Thank you, Phil. All in favor? A resounding aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for attending and sitting through the whole thing. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna.
Bye-bye.
Take care.